I don't even know where to start. I'm amazed at how many people have bought this idea about this cam footage and saying that it proves that Kiely's vehicle went into the water. Okay, number one, it doesn't prove anything. And everybody was coming out yesterday saying, well, we have the raw footage. I don't care if it's raw footage or if it's manipulated or whatever. It still doesn't prove a thing. Okay, people, here's the deal. Okay, a lot of you are looking at this like it's like this continuous movie that shows all these things happening. So, to use that footage to try to prove that Kiely's vehicle went into the lake is virtually impossible. Plus, from that original camera, I don't understand why people can't tell that the headlights are pointed toward the camera and not toward the lake. I think it swings around and does just like Jeff in his video says, that it came around, it was two people parking, they come around down by the water, and then they came around, turned sideways, which is normal. I mean, if you're on a slope like that, you turn sideways so you don't roll down the hill. And I believe that's exactly what they did. So I went in and I looked at the raw footage, everything that everybody had posted on YouTube. I went and looked at all that. I'm sorry, it doesn't prove a thing to me. And I honestly tried to look at it objectively, because I know I could be wrong. I know that. We could all be wrong. Until all of the information comes out, until AWP releases the rest of their footage, until law enforcement releases what they know, we are all operating on partial information. So my objective is not to pick a side. My objective is to try to look at what is the most feasible and most believable. So I looked at the cam footage from an objective point of view. I really did. I'm not seeing it. I don't know what y'all are saying that you're so adamant, and people are just getting just flat out nasty, saying that we're all idiots that believe in foul play. It almost makes me think that you got paid off by the SF and some of these other people that are trying to cover all this stuff up, because you're espousing their theories. I don't care what it shows. The very source that it came from makes me think it's suspect to begin with. I mean, be honest with you, I don't even have to look at it. And I already know it's BS. Just simply from all the timing of it and where it came. Oh, by the way, did you know that they have access to those cameras there at 911 dispatch? They can move them around, they can zoom them, they can do anything they want with them. Now, I'm not saying that they manipulated them, but I'm just saying, if there was actually something that happened there, they would have sent somebody. If they would have received the 911 call that people claim that was made about her vehicle going into the lake, which did not happen, and several creators have already proven that, gone through the police logs, there's nothing. There's no call, there's no dispatch, there's nothing. So whoever said that somebody called is lying and trying to make us believe that Kiely's vehicle went into the water Friday night. Okay, so everybody pushing this theory is these truckyites that are trying to cover stuff up. And a lot of you are allowing them to do it, which just makes me sad. And mad at the same time. You're just allowing yourself to be duped by all this stuff. So anyway, I went and I looked at it. I'm not seeing it. Not seeing it. I want us to look at something from a realistic point of view. Let's say that we were going to trial. Let's say that Group 1 are the ones that are trying to prove that Kiely's vehicle went into the water on Friday night. All right? let's say group 2, are the ones who believe AWP's story, believe that Nick ran into at least Kiely's vehicle, if it wasn't Kiely, at least her vehicle, on Saturday morning, and have the video footage of that encounter, plus have Nick's footage on his phone that he took, because there was one interview I saw where Jared kind of quickly said something about when things got so weird that Nick took his phone out and started recording. Now, I know a lot of you are going to come and say, he didn't say that, you didn't see that. And it's like, shut up. You guys tried to do the same thing to me when I told you that there was footage on the original members-only video that Nick said that the girl came up and introduced herself as Kiely. And a lot of you think that you know what I saw more than I know what I saw. And that's just stupid. How can you know what anybody sees? Well, then I started posting links to where other creators said the same exact thing. Even with the timestamp. Yeah. Y'all shut up then, didn't you? All right. So you might as well just shut up beforehand right now. Because you don't know what I saw and what I didn't. So you can yap your jaws all you want or yap your fingers or what all you want. All right? Now that we got that out of the way. So, we're going to trial. All right? We got side 1 with the cam footage. Side 2 with AWP's testimony of their encounter with Nick. You have Nick's testimony of his encounter with the couple at Boca. You have his girlfriend's account of what Nick told her on that day. You have the video footage. And you have the footage from Nick's phone. So, now, I used to work for the U.S. Attorney's Office as a cop for 10 years. I have a pretty good idea of what a judge would allow and what he wouldn't. Trust me, I've got shut down before on stuff I wanted to enter into evidence, and we can't enter that into evidence because of some BS reason. I thought, anyway. So I have a pretty good idea what would be entered into evidence and what wouldn't. So, now before trial, they have what's called discovery, where both sides present what they have, what they're going to enter into evidence, blah, blah, blah. All right? So here comes side 1. And they have the cam footage, which proves absolutely nothing. There's no proof it's her car. There's no proof that it went into the lake. There's no proof of anything. Nothing. Judge looks at that. He's going to laugh that out of court. I guarantee you. In fact, if you don't believe me, if you know a judge in the area who does like criminal trials, take him the footage of the fire cams and ask him, would you allow this in the court? He'd probably just look at you and laugh. If he's honest. Now, if he's like someone in Truckee, who knows? They're trying to cover it up anyway. He'd laugh that out of court. That wouldn't even be allowed into evidence. Not even for a single second. My dog's chewing on his rawhide. You can probably hear that in the background. Now, what would be allowed into evidence? Well, AWP's testimony of their encounter with Nick would be allowed into evidence. Nick's encounter with the couple at Boca would be allowed into evidence. His girlfriend's testimony of what Nick told her would be allowed into evidence. The video footage taken by the cameras on Nick's truck would be allowed into evidence. The footage on Nick's phone that he took would be allowed into evidence. So we're going to trial. Here comes side one with their version of the story. Well, their version is, we got nothing. Because all you had was that cam footage that the judge is not going to allow into court. Because it proves nothing. So here comes AWP testifies. Nick testifies. His girlfriend testifies. Then they show the video from the truck. They show the video from Nick's phone. Which I believe that Nick's phone probably went a long way toward AWP saying that these people were 100% credible. Remember Doug's statement saying if you don't believe that they're 100%, or if you don't believe that they're credible and their story's credible, you're wrong 100%. That's what he said. Now, you think they just believed it based on just his say-so? And his girlfriend say so? They probably would have if they deemed them credible people. But I think there's something else thrown into the mix there that a lot of people didn't pick up on. So anyway, if we went to trial on this, you're trying to prove it's an accident. We're trying to prove that it's foul play. Plus, we have to add into the mix the day after Kiely was reported missing, an arrow drawn into the sand showing right where her vehicle was. I believe it went into the water Saturday, probably Saturday night. I don't think it went in Friday night. So those of you that think it went in Friday night and think it was an accident, you're going to have to show me a lot more proof than this footage that takes like one frame every however long it is that a lot of you are viewing as a continuous movie, and it's not. Not even close. So anyway, that's really about all I have to say this morning. You know, but it is something to think about.
Alrighty, so we see that Kiely Rodni's death was ruled an accidental drowning. And as we've known since her recovery, her body was found in the cargo area of her vehicle. Now, we received the autopsy and pathology report from Nevada and Placer counties. We've seen it was deemed an accidental drowning. And we've also seen that she must have drowned on air because there was no water in her stomach at all, and just a trace amount of seepage into her lungs as a result of her sitting in the water for 2 weeks. Now, common sense tells us that there's no way possible that this was a drowning. How can anyone say she drowned when there's no water filling the lungs and stomach? It's impossible. Now, in this video, I want us to take a look at this and see if the results of the autopsy and pathology reports jive with the facts in this case, as well as with common sense. Now, first of all, I posted a link to a video I watched this morning of Duty Ron's and Ed Wallace's evaluation of the autopsy report. And I encourage you to watch their video. I posted it, like I said, in the description. I want you to watch it because it really sheds a lot of light on this report that's come out. Now, I'm going to go over some of what they said, but I suggest you go watch the whole video as it's very enlightening. And I also think it shows that this whole autopsy and pathology report omits some very pertinent information and totally ignores information they could have easily obtained. And I'll be up front right now. I believe this whole thing is a complete joke, hands down. Now, if you really believe that this was just an accident, my personal opinion is you're simply closing your eyes to the truth. There's absolutely no way, and I mean no way, that we can look at the evidence and say that this was just an accident. No way. Now, again, I encourage you, if you haven't already, watch Duty Ron's video before you start coming in here trolling with your predetermined bias, ignoring the facts, all right? I know there's going to be people that do it, but, you know, like I say, you're just ignoring facts. Now, let me start out sharing some quotes and other info from Duty Ron's video. Again, go watch the whole thing, because I'm just going to cover a few things from that video, and there's a whole lot more information that, for brevity's sake, I'm not going to get into. There's no sense duplicating what they've already covered. I just want to cover a few main points here. Now, Ed Wallace says this. He says, this observation that's found in the report is by the deputy coroner at the scene examining the position of our victim here after the car has been flipped and pulled out of the water. It's not the position that she was in the water when the car was upside down. And there's no information about that. And in the deputy coroner's death scene report, it makes no mention of them taking their own independent photographs. All they talk about is that there's a supplemental set of photographs and report taken by the sheriff's office crime scene people. And I don't understand that, because the jurisdiction of that body, although it's the same agency, it's the deputy coroner's job to take pictures of that body as they find the body. In other words, as it was underwater before they flipped it over. All right. Now, he went on to say that the scene underwater is no different than a crime scene on land, and that you have to handle the scene underwater the same as you would handle a crime scene above ground. Pictures should have been taken, evidence should have been gathered, the same as a normal crime scene on the ground, which we know they did not. And he said an underwater camera should have been taken down to the vehicle before it was even moved. And that you do the same forensic photography underwater as you would a crime scene on land. Now, Duty Ron then asked Ed why that information was left out of the report. Ed said that the scene wasn't handled as a crime scene, and that they didn't follow the basic forensic standards of underwater recovery. And I don't know if you remember some of my prior videos, I've been saying this very thing the whole time, that they did not handle it as a crime scene. He said that obviously they didn't take any documentation, they didn't do any secondary dives once the vehicle was removed, because they didn't go back into the water and collect all the things that fell out of the vehicle once they flipped it and broke the window and the mirror. Now, one interesting thing that Ed points out is how the pathologist contradicts his or herself. The first statement is that the body could not be identified due to decomposition. But then, later in the report, says that the body was identified by the deputy coroner, not the family, which is always the procedure unless there's no family member available to do so. Now, there may be some isolated cases, but for the most part, that's basic procedure. You have it identified by the family. So, if the face was unrecognizable because of decomposition, I find it virtually impossible that the deputy could make a verifiable identification. How does that happen? Things that make you go, Ed asks, he says, how did they do that? Speaking of identifying the body. He said fingerprints weren't available due to decomposition. There's no mention of DNA. There's no mention of dental records. There's a box on the report that says they don't know who her dentist is. What? Seriously? Hey, look, man, this is not Los Angeles or even San Francisco or Sacramento. This is small Truckee, California. Less than 17,000 people. Now, in the days between recovering the body and doing the pathology, you couldn't ask Kiely's parents who her dentist was so you could compare dental records? How the hell do you explain that? One phone call, and you could have found that out. And then one more phone call to request those records from the dental office. You mean to tell me that this girl is 16 years old and she's never been to a dentist? Oh, man, get real. Who you fooling? Not us. Now, Ed goes on to say, even if the deputy was able to recognize the face, even with all the decomposition, a facial ID is not forensic identification. He said you have to do it by fingerprints, DNA, or dental records. I mean, I'm sorry, but this whole report put out by Nevada and Placer counties is a complete joke. A complete joke. Now, another thing that's missing from the report is the examination of the brain to see if there's evidence of blunt force trauma. So, if there was a head injury, they didn't even check for that. Now, if there was death as a result of strangulation, the discoloration of the skin in all that time in the water would make that pretty much impossible to see after 2 weeks. And it's also too easy to say she died from lack of oxygen or dry drowning or whatever it is and cover up the fact she was strangled, if indeed that was what happened. It's a joke. Now, both Duty Ron and Ed Wallace say that the body should have not been cremated until the final cause of death has been determined. And I've been saying that the whole time. It's hinky as crap. Ed said that with NYPD, where he worked, they would not allow the family to cremate the body until after they had finished their investigation and had issued a determination. But yet, in this case, they weren't even close to finishing their... Well, I think they were. I think they'd already decided from the beginning they were going to rule it an accident. They just played the part and acted like they were actually investigating to placate those of us who were claiming foul play. Now, both Duty Ron and Ed Wallace talked about how many things were missing from the report. They both wondered if the report that was released is even complete, just simply because there are so many things missing. I would, if I was going to bet on it, I would say, yeah, it's complete, because they didn't bother doing a whole lot of stuff, because they didn't take this thing seriously the whole time. They already knew what they were going to rule on it. Now, if you haven't seen this video, the one I'm posting in the description, you really need to watch it. At least the first half hour or so, because to me, that's where the bulk of the really good information is. You know, and they talk about how this report issued is unlike any report they've ever seen. They've never seen anything like this. I mean, this whole case, isn't that what this whole case has been? It's like, we're all saying, we never seen anything like this. I've had numerous people ask me, in your years of law enforcement, have you ever seen anything like this? And my response is pretty much always the same. No, not even remotely close. Now, if she entered the water driving, if this was indeed an accident, as they claim, and she panicked as she headed toward the back looking for an air pocket, and considering with the two windows down, according to Jared with AWP, he said that her CRV would have filled with water in 20 to 30 seconds, with the passenger window down and the back driver's side window being halfway down. Now, as hard as it is to get to that cargo area in the car, even as small as she was, she'd have been gulping water getting back to that air pocket, because that car would have filled up so quick. I mean, how long do you figure, let's say that she was in the driver's seat, she's trying to get her seatbelt, panicking, trying to get her seatbelt even undone. That in itself would take more than 20 seconds. That's my opinion anyway. Because you see that water pouring in there, you're panicking. You know how it is when you're panicking, you're trying to do something, and things that sometimes that are normally easy to do, not quite as easy to do when you're panicking. But she'd have been gulping water on the way back down there, and there would have been water in her stomach. So again, it is impossible for this to be an accidental drowning. And all I can say is anyone who believes it is doing it solely based on their own emotions and misbeliefs rather than the evidence at hand. Also, something important that Ed points out, that in the beginning of the report, when it says that the case is pending investigation, He points out that this is stated at the scene, while her body is still there and prior to the autopsy and pathology findings. So, as Ed points out, it does not mean that they are still investigating this. And if it was still being investigated, they would not have come out with the ruling that it was determined to be an accident or accidental drowning. That I know for a fact. It's just not the way it's done. Folks, they're done with this. I know that there are some who are saying for us to wait as there is still a pending investigation. No. That's not the case. The notation of pending investigation was preliminary at the scene, not the final ruling. The final ruling is accidental drowning, no evidence of foul play. Also, the report says no scars, marks, or tattoos, which we know isn't the case. Kiely had a tattoo 17 on her ribs. So, either they did not examine the body thoroughly, or they lied. For whatever reason. Either way, they fumbled the ball completely on this autopsy. Also, it says that the family physician was unknown. Again, they could have made one phone call and found out who both the dentist and doctor were. I mean, seriously? Really? And you expect us to believe that this was a thorough investigation? And you base your ruling on such a sketchy autopsy and pathology? Folks, I don't care what anybody says. This was either a cover-up or they are the most incompetent group of law enforcement and medical examiners I have ever seen. By far. It's not even a close second. All right, what I want to show you next, it's an email I received from someone I've been corresponding with and has provided me with a lot of detailed information about the fire cameras as well as other particulars in the case. I very much trust his judgment and insight and wanted to share with you what he sent me. And as a side note, he has given me permission to use what he's given me. He just wants me to keep his identity private, which I promised that I would do. Here is the email. Hi, Kevin. I watched Duty Ron last night, and he and Ed Wallace went over Kiely's autopsy. Based on theirs and my analysis of the report, it is seriously flawed. No estimate time of death. Yeah, they made the time of death as when they recovered it, which is normal, but you also give an estimated, they always give an estimated time of death. There was none of that. Coroner's investigator who recovered the body says identification via facial recognition was impossible because of decomposition. Excuse me. Kiely was identified at the autopsy by a sheriff's deputy via her facial features. Formal autopsy identification must be via fingerprints, dental records, or DNA. Same thing Ed Wallace said. Height and weight are wrong. No photographs taken at crime scene either by the divers or by coroner's investigator. The tox screens were done by an outside lab located in Philadelphia and may be the only factual part of the report. She tested positive for ethanol, just over legal limit at 0.88, but a note applied by the lab states that most of this will be from decomposition, which means that Kiely was not drunk. Or did not, because of drunkenness, take a mistaken turn. Caffeine, coffee, tea, or Coca-Cola. Nicotine, could be cigarette or vape. THC, cannabis, sometime in the month before death, legal in California. Numerous other drugs were tested for, including cocaine and opioids, all of which there was no trace. Now, that's the only one that, unless I heard wrong, Ed Wallace, in looking at the report, said that there may be traces of cocaine, but I'd have to go back and watch it again. But you can watch the video for yourself and see what he says. Okay, no water in lungs or stomach. No alcohol or edibles in her stomach. Only sample sent to lab is liver. Ed Wallace says it's normal to send liver, brain, blood, and vitreous fluid to the lab for tox testing. Blood sample checkbox appears to have been whited out. I know Duty Ron and Ed Wallace talk about that. Why'd they do that? Good question. Kiely's lungs are nominal weight for her age and size. Ed Wallace says drowning victims, kings are, I think he meant lungs. I think that's a typo. Are typically 3 times their nominal weight. She wasn't pregnant. She should have had pre- and post-mortem injuries due to vehicle hitting water, rolling over, and with decomposing skin being rolled over by recovery divers with enough force to break the mirror, the window, damage the roof, windscreen, door, and front fender. None were observed. She was fully clothed with one shoe and sock off, but near her. Parents were never asked for their medical and dental records, a must before any autopsy. Which I 100% agree on that. That's normal. That would be the normal thing to do. To go in there and say, we don't know who the dentist is, we don't know who the doctor is. Yeah. Report is only partial, not a complete report. A complete report must include autopsy photographs, even if redacted. So Kiely was neither drunk or drugged, and there is no evidence of drowning. In my humble opinion, she was dead when the vehicle went in the water. And you know that's my assessment as well. That's the only conclusion that I can come to based on evidence. Not on my emotional reaction to things, but based on evidence. And I've looked at all the information myself, and I have to conclude that there's a lot of things that were left out of that report. A lot of parts of the examination that they didn't do. That seemed to go along with the rest of the way they've handled this case. I'm sure a lot of you agree with me, if not most of you. I had to laugh this morning. I got a notification that somebody had mentioned me in their video. And, in fact, they mentioned a whole bunch of us. In fact, they had a whole collage of all these videos going at the same time of all of us people who are still hanging on to the viewpoint that this was not an accident. And it's kind of funny to me that people have nothing better to do. They can't prove their own point, so they've got to go after us who are not believing in all this crap that we've been fed by Placer County and Nevada County and Cuckoo County and whatever else. You know, and he says, oh, that you still got guys milking it, and they're doing it just for money. It's like, number one, you're an idiot. Because you don't know people's motives. You have no clue why anybody's doing anything. So you're a moron, basically. You know, and I'm being nice. Secondly, let me tell you how much money that I've made on this. 0. Goose egg. Nada. Not a dime. That's not why I'm doing it. So you make accusations like that without any basis of fact. That's called slander. But anyway, I just consider the source. People like that, they say that we're idiots and buffoons and all that stuff. It just makes me laugh. Because, you know, number one, they've got nothing to stand on. I believe all the evidence is on our side. Just because we have corrupt law enforcement organizations that cover things up and lie to us and sweep things under the rug and have for years, and I mean years and years and years. Anyway, it just kind of cracked me up how stupid people can be. Yeah, they try to claim that we're the stupid ones. We know the. Anyway, this whole thing. I mean, ever since that AWP video came out of them recovering Kiely's vehicle. It's kind of been a battle of two sides. You got the accident people versus the foul play people. And the thing that really created the foul play scenario is right when they found Kiely's vehicle and Nick came out of the water and he said it looks suspicious. That was the catalyst that got everything going. That was what got the ball rolling. So they've come out and ruled this to be an accident. I just wanted to do a short... Oh, yeah, and I guess I'm still milking the cow. Got milk. But you know what? Here's the thing. Let me say this, too. That people that say this kind of crap don't understand what passion is. Don't understand what caring is. We're not doing it to make money, you fool. We're doing it because we care. We're doing it because we want to get to the truth, and we don't want it to just be swept aside. Just sweep it aside and move on. Oh, bite me. Friggin' moron. No, we do this because we care. We keep it going because we care. We keep it going because we don't want it to just be forgotten and let this crap... And by the way, I'm not doing this just for Kiely. I'm doing it for all the people in the past in that area who have been set aside and they just swept their deaths under the carpet and called them accidents when there was so many that it's obvious that there was foul play involved, but they just, it's an accident. And I'm also doing it for the people in the future, because if they get away with this, just like they've gotten away with ones in the past, it'll just keep happening again and again and again and again, unless somebody does something about it. So y'all that want to call us a bunch of milkers and saying we're just doing it for clicks, whatever. If that's what you want to believe, be a moron and go ahead and keep believing it. But I know that I'm associated with some people that we care. We don't want to see this swept under the carpet. We don't want to see future people treated the same way. We want it to come to an end. So that's why we're doing it. And if you don't like it, whatever. Go back and cry to your mama. But let's just say this was an accident. All right, let's just say, for argument's sake, this was an accident. All right, okay. Now, for this to be an accident, there's several assumptions that would have to be made, quite a few, in fact. And I'm not naming all of them in this video. I'm just naming some of the obvious ones. First of all, to say that Kiely had an accident, we would have to conclude that Kiely would have had to be unfamiliar with the area. That would initially make a wrong turn possible. All right? However, she was not unfamiliar with the area. She knew that area like the back of her hand. How many times have we seen videos of her driving, talking about what a great driver she was and how she knew the area? And, you know, I mean, that's what you heard at first. It's like, well, Kiely was a good driver. She did this, and she drove in all these crazy roads, and blah, blah, blah. All right, so she'd have had to have been unfamiliar with the area. Now, I can see if it was her first time there, but it wasn't her first time there. So you can't tell me that she didn't know the road in and the road out from that area. If you think that, then you're just denying the obvious. And you're stupid. Plain and simple. All right. Secondly, Kiely would have had to be inebriated to the point where her friend said, and I say that friend, yeah. Friend said that she could hardly walk and was stumbling into holes. The autopsy report said that her alcohol level was 0.88. Normal with no alcohol or very little alcohol, which wouldn't even affect you, is 0.80. So 0.88 would be maybe the equivalent of one beer, one drink. It's not even close to being tipsy, much less stumbling drunk and falling in holes and, as Sammy said, too drunk to drive home. No. And the thing is, too, is that level in her body of 0.88, a lot of that is, you ask anybody, any doctor that knows, and even what they said, that would have added to it. So we can conclude easily that the 0.88 was not the level that she was even at. She was lower than that, because the decomp would have added to that level. So she was not even tipsy, much less stumbling drunk. All right, the third thing is, Kiely would have had to be so drunk that she became confused and couldn't tell this path from the main road. Okay, now we've all heard the description of the road, right? When Doug was talking about how it was so rough it almost flipped the rig twice going down there. There's absolutely no possible way that she would think that she was still on a paved road. Number one, she wasn't drunk, so there wouldn't have been any effect on her judgment. She was familiar with the area. There's absolutely no way that she would have just inadvertently taken that road and gone down there bouncing all over the place and not know that she wasn't on the main road. To even think that is just complete idiocy. I mean, I don't care how drunk somebody is. And of course, she wasn't drunk. So there's no way that she would have taken a wrong turn. All right, fourthly, Kiely would have had to be so drunk that she didn't know she was headed toward the water and didn't take any precautions to keep from going in. I know that Check It TV showed how dark it was going down there in that video that he did. But with Kiely being stone cold sober and also knowing the area, why would she even drive down there and get close? Plus, she would be sober enough to slam on the brakes immediately as soon as she saw any part of the vehicle going into the water. I mean, she's not like being like Speed Racer and going down there and going as fast as she can toward the water, if she was going down there. Trust me, if she would have come up and all of a sudden those headlights hit and she saw water covering any part of her vehicle, she'd have slammed that sucker in reverse and gotten out of there. So, sorry. Fifthly, we would have to believe that after texting her mom and telling her she'd be leaving in 45 minutes, instead of going home, she decided instead to take a midnight swim with her car. Now, I don't know if she texted her mom or not, because you got to remember, where that came from. But if she was planning on leaving the party, within half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it would have been, I don't see her leaving the party area and instead of driving home, driving down there. That just doesn't make any sense. Sixthly, we would have to believe Sammy's stories that were filled with as many holes as Swiss cheese. We would have to believe she was not involved and had no reason to lie and say things she either knew or should know were not true. Like saying Kiely's car had a sunroof when it obviously did not. If you watched it when it came out of the water, It did not have a sunroof. You know, the thing is, and I'm not being derogatory when I say this. I'm just being matter of fact. She's just one of those people that she lies. I think, you know, she probably lies so much that she doesn't even kind of be able to, you know, understand when she's lying or telling the truth, because it just flows from her. I've been around people like that. You know, it's like they tell a lie when the truth would serve them better. I used to date a girl like that. She always liked him. He's like, you know, and the things that she told me, she'd been better off. She just told me the truth. But some people. All right, seventhly. Is that a word? That is now. We would have to believe that Kiely drove down to the lake all by herself. There was nobody else around, and nobody saw her drive in, and nobody called 911. Crickets. Even though she supposedly texted her mom and said she'd be leaving in 45 minutes. And like I say, keep in mind that story comes from Sammy. So, enough said. Eighthly, we would have to believe that she drowned without inhaling any water into her lungs or swallowing water and silt as she was seeking an air pocket in the back of her vehicle. Now, we know from AWP's account of that area that there was a lot of silt on the bottom of there. And it would be easily stirred up. If a vehicle hit that water, there'd be silt stirred up all over the place. Now, I understand some of the people that have gone over the autopsy and gone over and looked on Wikipedia and Google or whatever and said that it wouldn't be abnormal for her not to have water in her lungs. But at the same time, they are not doctors. All right, we can't be experts off of Googling something or Wikipediaing something and comparing it and then saying, well, no, there's a lot of other factors that we don't know, not being medical doctors. So, you know, I can't say because there was no water in her lungs or in her stomach that she drowned or didn't drown. I don't know. I'm not a medical person. I don't have enough information, enough knowledge to be able to evaluate that. I'm just going by common sense. You look at the report of the weight of her lungs, it was way off. I mean, way off. It said it was 100 grams when the normal weight of a lung for a girl of that age would be about 450 to 500 grams. Explain that one. Everybody just looked at that as being like, huh? What? It's a joke. But, you know, I just don't, and the thing is, if nothing else, because there would have been a lot of silt stirred up, and if you're trying to keep from drowning and you're heading for an air pocket, you're going to be gulping water. Plain and simple. There's no way around that. And even if the water somehow has left the stomach, which they didn't note any damage to the lungs or to the stomach through which anything could seep out. But even if there was no water in the stomach, there would be silt. There would be some kind of debris that had been swallowed. Now, there may not be a whole lot of it, but there's going to be some. Yet the only thing they saw was some peas or beans. You know, could it also be debris from the water? That's also a possibility. I mean, I don't trust anything that they say anyway, but to me, now, you know, and like I say, I can't say, yeah, because there was no water in her lungs, she didn't drown, or because there was no water in her stomach, she didn't drown. But I believe there should be some. If she did, I would think there'd be some silt residue in her stomach if she did. There's going to be something. And so I just can't believe that she drowned. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. There's got to be something. There's got to be some evidence of some kind that she drowned. Now, the thing is, we have to consider all of these things together, not just one aspect, and base our determination off of that. And what I mean by that is, look at the way the whole investigation was done. Look at how it seems like they deliberately botched everything, deliberately destroyed evidence, did not send divers to retrieve evidence, just the way the whole thing was done. And so we must also consider the way the whole investigation was handled and all of the inconsistencies and seemingly deliberate mistakes made throughout. You know, anybody, I think, can look at this and see that this was really a weird situation. And let's put it mildly, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. To me, it's personally, it's so obvious that they made the determination they were going to rule this an accident from the very beginning. That's why they didn't bother to do things right. And the thing that makes me mad is the fact that they did it with all these eyeballs on them, with all the public scrutiny. It's kind of like, we do our thing, and we're going to do it, and there's not anything any of you people can do about it. Well, we'll see. So I just am having a really hard time logically saying that Kiely took a wrong turn. She ended up down at the lake and ended up driving in on her own. I just don't see any way possible that could happen. So what I say to you is, look at the evidence realistically. Look at the evidence logically. And then draw your own conclusions.